So, welcome to Gaule's Question Time again. I had the pleasure today being joined by Scott Evans. Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you doing today? You okay?
Very good, Scott. Very good to have you join us. We've had some interaction around AI, and I thought it'd be really good to share that with the community that we've got here and we've built up around AI and tech change within business or more generally. Give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and your little bit of your background, and then we'll get into talking about the AI specifically.
Yeah, sure. So, I previously I've worked in the financial services sector for just over a decade, and I found myself being slightly unfulfilled in the previous role that I had. So I started looking for new ventures and a way that I could work for myself. And I stumbled across ChatGPT in January 2024, I think it was, because I was looking for a better way to send communications and updates and emails because I was a project manager at the time. And I stumbled upon the YouTube video. It said, "Oh, you can use this new thing called ChatGPT. They'll be able to help you with that." And from that very moment, I thought, "My God, this is pretty cool." So started off there in January 2024, and then in June last year, I was able to start my business, Wonderland AI, which kind of helps businesses move from like AI curious to AI confident. So, basically what that means is we work hands-on with majority of the leadership teams, looking at how we can upskill them, how we can prepare them for AI adoption, making sure that they are able to understand the fundamentals of AI technology from the top so they can install that into the business, going down all the way to like your junior roles as well.
Great.
Uh, we do that via like training sessions, and I help with AI governance and policy structures, and then that leads into AI opportunity assessments, and then even AI automations if they need that off the back of it.
Great, great. We'll get into talking about some of those particular topics in that in a moment. But I think, yeah, you had that sort of wow moment like I had when I first saw it there at the end of 2023, and the yeah, for me, I had a similar effect, sort of going back to the .com stuff, and you're probably not old enough, but going back the mid to late '90s when I saw the internet and was sort of going to my organisations and saying, "Wow, this is going to change stuff," and it was, oh no, people are always going to buy direct from us, and and I think we saw the same with the AI, right? The initially it was, oh yeah, people are always going to be in the loop, and it makes mistakes and it hallucinates and sort of stuff like that, but we've seen it transforming now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. And I think that there's going to be skeptics with any new technology or anything new in general, because I think people always want change and they want something new, but then when it happens, they are always like, "Oh no, I don't want the change," and "Oh no, this is too new for me." So we're kind of in that phase now, but I'm predicting that in the next kind of 6 to 9 months, that I think people are going to start to really wake up and understand that it's not just a basic chatbot that helps you with productivity and write emails and stuff, that it actually can fundamentally change your business processes and the way that you are managing your business and even scaling it as well.
Yeah. And certainly I've been running programs and that as well, and going back probably about the summer of last year, I had a number of people said, "Oh yeah, we're doing AI now. We've got Copilot." And it's like, as you said, Scott, is you're there then say, "No, you really haven't changed, have you? Have you? If that's
Yeah.
all you're thinking you're doing is emails." So how do you think executives need to understand about AI and how can they lead from the front? What's your perspective on that?
So I think one of the things they need to do really is resist the urge to talk about and look at tools. So this is where I think most leaders and most people in business are going wrong. So they're starting with like you said, or we've got Copilot, or we need ChatGPT, or we need this, and they're already solving a problem that hasn't already yet been defined yet. So I think the best thing they can do is like anything, when you have a business, you want to look and you want to improve it. You want to start with what's the business problem, what's actually costing you time, money, quality, and what's the process that everyone internally know is broken, but nobody's fixed. So I think if you kind of go around that way of thinking about things, then you can really start to install like a better way of thinking about, okay, it's not just a tool, we're not just shoving it in here. We are looking at the overall dynamics and processes within a business. And we are then looking at how we can put a strategy together to not only educate ourselves and our employees, but also start to look what are those key business problems and where can AI really help.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the kind of one of the starting points I say to most leaders I talk to.
Yeah, I'd push back a little bit or give a bit of a challenge to Scott because the what I found is that until people see what AI can do, and they need to understand some of those tools, they don't understand because I guess it's like if you went to somebody who was using a horse and cart and sort of said, well, why don't you use a car? They'll just think it's a faster horse and cart, right? And I think until you got that wow moment, I suppose an example that I try and use with people is when we first started using AI, we used it with our Henley Business Angels, so our investment group. And we said, okay, we've got these pitch decks that we each have to look at each month or each time we get a bunch of things in. And that takes a lot of time as people reading them.
Yeah.
And unless you'd seen what AI, Claude, and GPT could do in reading those and giving you the analysis, you wouldn't have thought that I could change my process with that. But also, what I found in discussing with companies is now they've got this database of thousands, tens of thousands of previous pitch decks that they've had. They couldn't possibly have done that before with humans, or
Mhm.
they were just relying on the executives and the investment managers who've been around 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, for them to happen to remember a pitch deck that they might have read 8 years ago because it was something similar to the current one. But now the power of AI can do that. So the reason I challenge or push back a little bit is because the power of the AI now can do things that we couldn't think were possible before. So how do we engage executives to actually understand that sort of side of it?
Yeah, so I think it's like a bit of a show and tell kind of exercise, and this is what not to bring it back to myself and my company, but this is what I do with my business. The first entry point is to educate the senior leaders on what it is, what it can do, and how they can use it. So it's like practical, hands-on workshops. None of these slide decks and me talking in my monotone voice for half an hour
Yeah,
and losing them. It's about saying, okay, let's have a look. Okay, you're in the finance industry. What do you need to start looking at? You need to start looking at like your P&Ls. You want to start looking at analyzing your financials and your data. Let me show you how you can do that in one of these tools. So you have amazing things like in ChatGPT, you have the Canvas feature where you can, as long as obviously you've got the security and you're on the right package, you can put in your data into there and you can show it visually on Canvas into like a dashboard that you can then start to kind of interrogate and show the board and stuff like that. So it's really showing them what is possible with the tools that they have available. And then once they know what's available to them, and this is why I agree with your pushback, is then you can move on to, okay, what are the business problems and what do we want to make better? And how can we scale the business without maybe, increasing our headcount and spending a lot of money on that? So I think that's where the real value
yeah.
is with AI as well.
Yeah, no, giving case studies and giving examples, I think is now the more powerful thing in that to do because I agree with your point there about this is not a tool. And, just going back to my sort of previous example about the internet, we don't talk about the internet anymore.
Yeah.
We talk about the fact that you've now got an app on your phone and you can just order products sort of straight away, or we can communicate very easily. And AI is going to disappear from these discussions. It's going to be about what it does and sort of stuff like that.
Yeah,
So you
without a doubt.
touched on there when you talked about your example about, I guess, governance, security, and sort of stuff like that. Give us a bit more insight into the things that organizations need to think about, because otherwise there's a danger that individuals within the organization go off and start using these tools, but it's not within the right governance and structure, right? So what's your views on organizations doing that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like to tell the senior leaders that I've worked with is just try not to use free tools. Obviously, you can use them in a personal setting and start to understand them, but you don't want to be shoving anything into a free tool. If you're using free ChatGPT or whatever, it's not the best place to go. So pay for a license. They're not that expensive. It's the entry level in terms of being able to understand the technology, and the cost has never been so low. So kind of pay for something that has security grade protection, and then have a basic AI policy that you put in place that just stipulates this is what it is, this is how you use it, this is how you shouldn't use it, and these are the different things that you need to think about when you are using it. So I'm actually in the middle of a project for a financial institution within the UK. I'm helping them now look at their governance structure that they've currently got in place, and looking at where we can either attach AI into that, because we don't want to kind of replace the whole thing. Don't want to duplicate it, but where we can bolt on AI onto their already existing governance and compliance policies, and then also generating a AI use policy as well that they can start to use. So if you think about it in terms of like your 5Ps angle that I think you've spoken about previously, you've got like your purpose and like they knew in this example they know that AI is coming, but they haven't got the fundamentals in terms of AI policy and governance in place. So they're looking at that now. You've got the people, so the senior managers that need to be accountable, so making sure that you have the right people in place to be accountable for AI technology in the business. Then you've got your the process. So you redesign their governance structure to include like the AI committee with like clear operating terms and stuff like that. And then like looking at maybe like the performance pace, because it's a regulated industry, the framework is benchmarked against FCA and PRA requirements as well. So it's quite a big piece of work, but I think a lot of people are skipping this, and a lot of businesses are skipping this, and it's fundamental to be able to do to be able to use AIs to get this in place first. Make sure that you're using safely and securely, and then the world's your oyster.
Yeah, great. All right. Thanks very much for putting in my 5P
No worries.
work as
I
well,
did my homework.
which is in my book, and that the purpose to performance. Yeah, no, I agree that, and and that book I wrote probably about 15 years ago now. Well, certainly the material and that within it goes back to that overall technology and how it does how it changes your business processes and your value chains. And you're right, it needs to come from that strategic perspective, and the people are the central partner to it. And partners like yourselves and like us are the ones who need to be able to take you on that journey and that now. And I think, we're going to, in this sector, I think it's really important to understand, we're going to use different large language models. We're going to use models in companies. We're going to use layers on top of those types of things. And it's not software as a service, which just sort of plugs and plays in that now.
Mhm.
We're going to go through this transition for some time, aren't we, in how we implement and regulate this stuff.
We are, yeah. And I think one of the key things is we're so early in the journey that things are going to change so quickly and so often that we're in that process now where we're going to have to keep evolving and keep changing. And this technology is not going to wait for us. We
Yeah.
need to kind of be at the forefront and making sure that we are, you know, doing it correctly. So
Yeah. Great. Well, that takes us really onto that topic of what's going to sort of happen next. What's your view on how things are going to be evolving over the rest of this year? Now we've got three more quarters and that. So what's your view now about how things are going to move in AI and in business implementations?
yeah, I mean it's a good question. I think in terms of what's going to happen in businesses, I think the UK has been quite slow to kind of be at the forefront of AI and to progress AI and to educate people with AI. I mean, if you look at the government 4.1 million pound website that they put together with AI training, which is god awful if you go onto it. I think we're quite far behind. So I think what we're going to find now is over the next, say, 6 to 9 months, I think businesses are going to start to wake up because there's a lot more information out there. I think some of the noise is coming down a bit now, and people are starting to choose people that they follow. They're starting to read the right things. I think they're going to start to see okay, well, this AI is not too scary and it can actually do a lot of things for me. And I think we're going to see a big shift with senior leaders going, okay, now that I understand it, we can start doing something with it. So I think that's what's going to happen in terms of a business perspective. And people are going to hopefully, say hopefully, stop seeing it as this productivity enhancer and as this chatbot that they can get to write emails, and they'll actually see it for what it is, and the fact that it can really um, do the business in your business. It can like make your processes way more efficient. It can help your business to, tenfold. And then I think in terms of the overall AI space, what's going to happen in the next year, I have no idea. What one week it seems to be quite slow. The next week you've got like 10 new models, and then it can do, you know, PhD level stuff, and it's crazy. So what I like to tell people as well is when they're worried about not keeping up, I think we that work in the AI space are struggling to keep up as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, in terms of like the actual AI space, I don't know.
yeah.
It changes daily.
Yeah, no, I think I had a similar impression to you as well. And I think I got to about the summer of last year and sort of said, I'm not going to try and keep up now with this tech because there's enough tech there to be able to implement and sort of change stuff. Going back to our previous bit of the conversation, really, if you understand enough to know where this direction is going and the sorts of things you want to do, that gives you enough knowledge to say, well, okay, I could use it to automate this process. I could use it to augment my people. I could use it to do additional things I couldn't have done before. Like in the investment example, I could now have a platform which reads the emails, categorizes the pitch decks that are coming in, gives feedback to the entrepreneurs, classifies them to the right people to be able to review them, and looks at them overall, and maybe does some more context of the type of information. You said with deeper research, these things are now coming. And if I wanted to do, like one of the examples we did was to have an interview with the person that's doing the pitching. Well, yeah, you can spin up an avatar now and or a voice one and do that sort of interview. Those things
Mhm.
are becoming cheaper, faster, more coherent, and it's more about are people or organizations and processes ready for them?
Yeah.
Are you ready for having agents answering the phone, AI agents, AI avatars answering the phone? So where are you with those types of implementations and that in your thinking of when they might become more acceptable or organizations might want to have them answering their business phones or things like that? What sort of examples are you seeing?
So it's quite hard at the moment because I think, like I said, the UK market is slightly immature in terms of their adoption of AI and implementation of AI. I think the conversation around voice AI is still a bit touchy because people want to talk to people. But if you listen to those voice AI solutions, they are bloody incredible, and they can really do a job. So I think I think that I think businesses really need to look at their data first because you can put AI into any process, but if your data isn't correct and it isn't structured, you're not going to have decent outcomes. So first look at your data and then start to look at implementing as well off the back of that. I think that's one of the most important things as well that I'd add on to what I said before about getting your policies and governance in place is that data. It's the same adage like crap in, crap out. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't get that, you're kind of your data in place first. Whatever you do, it's not going to work.
yeah. No, I think it's a good point you had there with the data. I think the perspective I've have though on whether AI is going to answer your call or whether AI is going to do part of the process. I think it's often that people would say, "Oh yeah, well, yes, I want a person to do it, but is the person going to answer the phone within three rings on a Friday evening or a Saturday morning when you want the answer to a query, whether it's trying to book a dental appointment or whether it's trying to book your car in for tires or whether it's answering a query that you've got? It's just it has to be better than the alternative. It doesn't have to be the almighty. And I
No,
think it now is getting better than the alternative in lots of cases. But it's that, yeah, I agree with you though, that when you implement and how you implement is going to be so important because if you try and go too early with too much, you will turn off your people and your customers if you don't sort of do it. But there are
Yeah.
other cases where your staff member would be happy to be freed up from trying to answer the phone, trying to speak to the customer in front of them, and doing their job of actually mending a car or fixing people's teeth or whatever the role is, right? So I think there's that part which is still to come, but the technology is there now, as you said, the voice and the data and the analytics is so good to be able to deal with the vast majority of cases in companies.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think one of the most important things, like what you were saying there, is people need to be upskilled. And if you upskill them and they understand it, and then you can augment it into their jobs, they'll be more than happy. Susie in accounts isn't going to be one of doing all of the manual things that she has to do. If she can offload that and do more valuable things, not only for the business, but for her own career progression,
Yeah,
then I don't see why you wouldn't. And when you're looking at the voice AI solutions, for instance, I'm with you when you're looking at phoning people, like, let me go back. If I'm trying to reach out to senior leaders, I know that I can get them on a Friday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon because on a Friday afternoon they haven't got any meetings. On a Sunday afternoon they're thinking about work, getting ready for it. On a Friday afternoon in the summer in the Malvern Hills, I want to be at the pub with having a pint. And on a Sunday afternoon I want to be spending it with my family. So if I can have a voice AI solution or AI technology to help me get in front of my ICP, then why not use that? And I think that's where the kind of, if you give people the knowledge and tell them how to use it and how it can be used and the benefits of it, then I think there's an easier kind of way of improving the change management within your business and getting them to adopt this new technology. Because I think one of the biggest things about AI is change management. Like in any project, change management is huge with new technology like AI that people are skeptical, sorry, and people are scared about. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just change management is key.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an individual, so an organization, a sort of country level, and that as well. And I'm very keen watching now what's happening within the US, Europe, and China. I've been following and traveling to in China for years, and I've been so impressed again on how they're applying and implementing this AI. So, they they say that they don't have the leading models, but as you and I know, that it's like, oh, they've caught up and they've just gone over
Yeah.
again and sort of stuff like that. And they're applying it cheaper, faster than we are within the West. And I think for me, an interesting thing is going to be the change that's going to come when robotics or with AI being embedded into devices or being embedded into processes. We're going to see those things happening in other places before we necessarily see them happening and that here as well, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think in China there's less red tape. I think they really just I mean, they're a country that innovates, they're a country that creates, and they really want to just get things moving as fast as possible. I think that's why, even though they might not have the best models, I think they're winning the AI races, as
Yeah,
people call it, because they're just quicker to the mark. And if you look at when DeepSeek came out, it just blew the market straight away. And if you look at their robotics, I don't know if you've seen the videos, it's a little bit worrying. You've got in the Western world, you've got, okay, here's this robot that's going to help you with like your washing maybe or doing things in warehouses. Over there, they've got these robot dogs with guns on their back, and you think, oh, Jesus. So yeah, it's a crazy world in terms of like the robotics side, and I can't wait to have a robot in my house doing my household chores for me. But yeah, I think going back to China, I think they really are pushing it. I think in the UK there's a lot of red tape. I still think in the higher kind of powers of the UK government there's still some skepticism.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and they need to obviously have the right things in place to make sure that we're not going to kind of implode
yeah,
when we have a lot of AI. But I just think if we could just take a few things that China are doing and the way they're implementing it and do it in the Western world as well, I think we'd be a lot better off.
yeah. Yeah, actually, one of the chapters in the book I referred to earlier, Purpose to Performance, there's a chapter in there about China. and I refer to there that the strategy for the country is driven by the leaders. So the Politburo, the top leaders, and that within the Chinese organization, it's something out of the nine of them. I think seven of them have got STEM degrees, so science, technology, engineering, and
Mhm.
mathematics sort of type degrees, right? And they've all come through running major organizations or major government departments, and they understand tech. So when I've run workshops and that within China, the leaders and that there are really engaged. There was one particular one. I was at the senior leader. She was the senior sort of mayor type person from in the Shanghai area, and I was discussing for over an hour with her, the tech and the internet and those implementation sort of type topics because they understand the technologies, they understand the business processes, they understand the outcomes that they want for their people and for their organizations and for their cities. And that's why they've then got the strategy so that they just published their next 5 year plan was published in the middle of March, just gone for 2026 to 2031. Yeah, and AI is still up there, and quantum's up there, and electronics embedded into biology is there as
Mhm.
well in their next 5 year plan, right? And you go back and read the previous 5 year plans for the last 40 years, and you see they've achieved it each year. And it's amazing when you show you can go and look it up, just do a search, and that for the Chinese Party 5 year plans. It's there, published and translated into English. If you want to read it, it's not a secret
Mhm.
of what they're doing. So it's fascinating stuff to keep an eye on what's happening in other parts. So
Yeah, and I think you should keep tabs on China. I know they get a bad rap in the in the news, but the things that they do are just incredibly impressive. And like you even look at their electric car industry, it's unbelievable. And like what they do, like you said, they understand technology, and they know that technology is going to be at the forefront of everything that we do in life in terms of and business. So they're really making sure that that's priority number one. Whereas I think in the UK and other places, it's not priority number one. I don't know what is, but so yeah,
politics with a small and a big P, I think is
yeah, yeah.
often the thing.
Uh, so yeah, and I think we can, like I said, I think we can take the good parts of what they do in China. I'd love to go there. I've never been. I'd love to go there. But I think we could take the good parts of what they do there in terms of technology and business, and parts of their culture as well, and it would really kind of slingshot us into being, up there with the best.
Good. Scott, it's been pleasure chatting to you. We've covered an awful lot of ground there in terms of where we are with AI at the moment, where we are with how business process changes within organizations. It's been great discussing with you, and we look forward to sharing more with our community and moving things forward.
And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.